Hey guys, in this class you're going to learn how to design a landing page in Photoshop from scratch. We'll begin by finding inspiration on the web, create wireframes, and then build a landing page design inside Photoshop. Once the page is completed in Photoshop, I'll use Instapage to build a live version and start getting leads. By joining this course, you can either follow along and create the same page, or start your own project and build a landing page your business or product needs. Now, in addition with the 1.5 hours of video, you'll receive the fully layered Photoshop file of the landing page created in this course and the Instapage document, which you can upload right away and start using it as a template. Now keep in mind that this course is aimed at students that have previously used Photoshop, so if you're ready, let's get started. Hey guys, now it's time to find some inspiration for our Bitcoin landing page. This is the first website I'm gonna visit. It's lapa.ninja. All of these links will be provided in the course description, so make sure to check that out. These are the most popular ones and the ones I use to find inspiration and to find layouts that could fit with what I need to build, which is a Bitcoin oriented lead generation landing page. So lapa.ninja is the first one. They provide inspiration for landing pages. I start by searching for different keywords related to my needs, and I looked for special layouts and different element groups that catch my attention, and I simply take screenshots of each individual section that gets my attention. So if I like a specific one, I just hold down Command-Shift-4, that's on the Mac, and I just take screenshots, as many as I can. Now this is also a great exercise to see what other people are doing in the same industry. So if you would be looking for real estate, you would be searching for real estate landing pages, and that would help you see what others are doing in the industry, what kind of specific elements, what kind of specific section they use. So that helps make a better idea in the end. The next one is going to be Dribble. Dribble.com is really well known for the quality of the work, even though most of these landing pages are just work in progress. They're not finished concepts, they're not actual designs. They're really good to get a glimpse on current modern trends and maybe see what can work for you. Now with Dribble, I tend to open up each design in its own new tab and then just go through them, and same as always, just take multiple screenshots from the designs I like. Now the next one is called landingfolio.com. Sometimes some pages might catch my attention and I will stay for longer than 5 seconds to form an opinion, but most of the time this is what I do. I simply take screenshots, and then I'm going to use those screenshots to create a layout, but I'm going to show you that later. Let's move on to the next one. I guess you heard about Pinterest before. This is a great place to create mood boards and to see inspiration. So I usually just go ahead and look for specific keyword elements like landing page design inspiration, design process, and then include specific keywords like Bitcoin, currency, banks, financial, stuff like that, so I can see again what people in the industry are doing. The same things apply, just take screenshots. Okay, I promise this is not as boring as it looks like. It's pretty interesting once you get into it, but I'll show you why this is important. So at the end of this video, I'm going to work in milanote.com. That allows you to create boards, mood boards. Let me not go over this one. Behance is usually the last place I look for inspiration. I don't think the quality is up to par with things I can get on Dribble, but these are more functional designs. I mean, these are actually designs that have been implemented in real life compared with the designs from Dribble. which are only limited by the imagination of the designer. So this is the last place I look for, and then I go to Milanote and bring everything together. This is a note-taking app. I create a canvas and then upload all the images I saved up on the desktop by taking screenshots. And let me just remove this element, and I'll go ahead inside the Finder and select all of them, and you can just drag and drop them. Milanote allows you to have a free canvas with 300 elements, I guess, so you can have multiple boards on the same canvas without having to pay anything. I just then align everything up. Let me speed this up. So as you can see, I'm moving everything underneath each other, and this way I can look at all of them, and right off the top I see something I like, that particular layout. I can hold down the Alt key and I can just duplicate it or simply move it, and I like to move it on the right side and create kind of a mock-up of things I like. This actually starts to begin looking like a landing page just because it has kind of the same ratio, and I just play around with stuff, and that should give me a direction for when I'm going to go inside the wireframing part and start actually building the layout I want to design. So this is really useful to simply imagine how it could look like. For example, I really like this header and the way it goes with the gradient, and I'm probably gonna use that. But right now I'm just trying to figure out things I like and things I don't like, things I want to see on the landing page, things I think are going to fit with my specific needs of building a Bitcoin oriented landing page that is a lead generation landing page in the end, and working on the message flow. The message flow I'm going to use for this particular process is going to be what, why, how, who, and call to action. Now, what is going to be the header area, and that's the place where the client is going to know what he's going to get. What are you going to get if you're going to sign up? You're going to get a free account, you're going to trade Bitcoin, stuff like that. Then followed by the features sections, which are why. Why is going to cover all of the benefits you're going to get by signing up to this particular service. So the following two sections are going to focus on that, selling benefits. Followed by how. How is going to break down the process in steps, and it's going to help the clients get a better understanding on what steps they need to take in order to take advantage of the offer, or how to use the platform, how to get the most out of it. Now at the end of the page I'm going to have testimonials, I'm going to have social proof that the service works and the service helps people, then followed by a closing argument with a call to action, which is usually a button or again a form, depending on the landing page you're going to build. Hopefully that makes sense, because it's really important to have an idea of what you would like to build beforehand, before even going into wireframing, before even going into sketching ideas out. So this step is one of the most important ones of the process. Now in the next video we're going to start building the wireframe, and we're going to sketch out our ideas and start building our landing page. Hey guys, so now I'm ready to start wireframing and building the foundation for our design. I've chosen to go along with Kaku. This is a web app that allows you to quickly put out ideas, and you can even export them and have up to 6 canvases for free. So you don't have to pay anything to use it. It has a pretty simple interface, which I like, so you just drag and drop elements onto the canvas and start visualizing your landing page layout. As you can see now, I've duplicated it and started to define each individual section, so I can start putting in multiple elements on each one. I'm going to simply write on the right hand side the message flow for each individual section. As you might remember, we talked about the message flow in the previous lesson, so be sure to check it out if you have any questions. The first section is gonna be what, as we discussed, where we're gonna make sure the visitor knows what they're getting if they sign up, followed by why, where we're gonna list a couple of features and benefits on why they should sign up, then how, which is gonna feature each testimonial, and the closing argument. This final section usually contains a button. Now I'm gonna assign a separate rectangle for each individual section, so we can start blocking in every single element we're gonna have, whether that's a headline, a paragraph, or additional graphical elements. Now I'm gonna try to select every single section and adjust it to have a better look on the whole layout. Now I know that most people prefer sketching out on sketchbooks, but I find this is way easier to create multiple variations and create different layouts for each individual section, so you have more freedom to experiment. But of course, this works for me. It doesn't matter that it will work for you. Just try it out. Try sketching, try doing it in a web app as I'm doing, and see what works best for you. Now let's start blocking in the different elements. The top one is gonna be the logo, followed by the main headline and a small paragraph underneath. The most important element is gonna be the form or the button, depending on the goal. So in this example, I'm just gonna have a small button and I'm gonna make it orange just to stand out. Let's place them in the middle and we can carry on with the why. But first let's make enough space for it, because I want to have two separate sections where I can present benefits. For this first one, I'm thinking about going with a standard 3-column layout, as this is pretty common throughout landing page designs. Once I'm happy with it, I'm gonna try and create the second section. But first, let's give it another color, just to make it different from the header. The most important thing I found when doing wireframing is to not get stuck on one idea. You just have to keep on experimenting until you find something you're really satisfied with. Now it's time to create the second why section, and this one is gonna have a different layout, of course. I'm thinking of maybe having an image on the left and then some graphics on the right, or maybe a header at the top and then 2 columns. I think that going from center to 3 columns to 2 columns looks pretty great. But again, you shouldn't be locked in with this idea. I'll just keep on experimenting. Let's get to the how. For starters, I'm gonna go with something really simple, like just having a play button in the middle of the section. That's a pretty common theme. So I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just trying to build a basic layout and then start doing variations and see what works and what doesn't. The way I'm picturing this play button to work is that if you click on it, a pop-up will appear with a video presentation of all the steps you need to take in order to take advantage of the offer. Now let's move along to who. I'm gonna duplicate these shapes and use them as the base. I'm thinking about maybe having just a big testimonial right in the middle, and then I can see if I can have another idea or a different layout for testimonials. Let's move around to the final closing argument. Usually what I have there is a variation of the header. So whether that's just the headline and the button or just the paragraph or the button, that's what I usually go with. Okay, so the first design is pretty much done. Now all I have to do is duplicate this one while holding the option key and selecting everything, or by copy pasting it. Now I can start experimenting with different layouts. For example, The first section I pretty much like and I'm happy with it. So even though I said don't take the first idea that comes to your mind and use it, I'm probably gonna stick with it. So let's just experiment with the third section that features a couple of benefits. I think that having two lines of content next to an image could work great here. So let's put the image on the right side. Only I know that's an image, but for now it's just a rectangle. And on the right side I'll have maybe two features. For the house section, I'm gonna probably leave it as it is. And for who, I'm thinking about maybe going with the two columns layout. Maybe have two testimonials in the same section. There's not a lot I can do with the final section, but maybe just have a paragraph and a button. So the paragraph I'm gonna use in the header, probably that's the same one I'm gonna use at the bottom as well. Let's just stay on this page, not leave yet, and move everything around so we can fit one more. This third variation is gonna probably give me everything I need to create one final design. So let's duplicate the second one and move right into doing a couple of variations. Let's start with the header, and I'm gonna go for a left align style, which means that I'm gonna try and align everything to the left so I can see how that would look like. Let's make one big content block there instead of having three. And for the second features section, I'm gonna duplicate this one and have 4 rows of benefits. Let's move this play button to the left as well and add maybe a content block next to it, so where I can actually have the steps written down in case the visitor doesn't want to see the video. Not sure what I can do for the testimonials, but for the closing section I'm gonna probably add the logo there. So these are my 3 options. Now it's time to decide what sections I'm gonna keep and what sections are not gonna work with what I have in mind. So let's just move everything to the right to have enough space for our final layout. I'll just duplicate the last variation, but now that I think about it, I'm just gonna select each individual section that I like. So the first one is gonna probably be this one, as I already can picture the design. Then I'm pretty happy with the 3 layout column I've done in the first place, followed by these 4 rows of features. Now on the how part, I enjoyed this particular section, even though it might not work. I'm willing to put in the time to see if it does. Afterwards, I wanted this layout with 2 separate testimonials, as I think that maybe having 2 testimonials might look better. And for the final section, I'm probably gonna go with the third design, where I have a logo, a closing argument, and a button. I'm pretty happy with the result, and you're gonna see throughout the whole process how important it is to already have a layout in mind and not do a lot of thinking on each individual section. Now I kinda know what I want in each individual section and what I don't like. I already visualized my landing page, so I'm ready to get started in Photoshop. Now I'm ready to start building my landing page once I've done the wireframe. Let's go ahead and create a new document which is 1200 pixels wide, so I can place my guiding marks at the center and on its sides, then go and adjust the canvas. Adjust the canvas to 1920. The reason why I do this is because I want to have every piece of content like text and images and icons inside this 1200 layout. So right now I'm trying to do the color scheme. I simply have a couple of rectangles which I applied the color scheme I was given in the brief. You received this brief inside the course. Just check out the comments or the course description and you should find it there. So if you want, you can go along with it. So let's group these two and rename the color scheme. And I'll start by embedding the wireframe. This wireframe will be placed at the top, on top of all the other elements, so I can make sure that I can toggle between it and make sure I'm on the right way when I'm building the landing page. So let's rename it to wireframe. To rename a layer, I simply double click on its name. Now let's make the background white and start developing our sections. I'll go ahead and create a rectangle, set its width to 100 and 920 with the height depending on the height you want to have on your specific section. For this one I'm gonna go with 800 pixels. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna edit the rest of the elements, the rest of the shapes I made for the other sections. So I'll have to adjust them to make sure they fit with my needs. I'm probably gonna go with 500 pixels for each one, but let's see how this goes. I usually use guidelines to separate each individual section. That way I'm making sure that whenever I start building a landing page, I already have a view over how the other sections are gonna look compared to that one. Now I'll create the first group where I'm gonna place the first rectangle, the rectangle that represents the header. Let's rename it, and now I can move the rectangle inside. Let's create a layer above it and right click and create layer mask. That means that everything that's going to be placed in that layer is going to be contained inside the shape element. For example, I want to go with a gradient, similar to what I've seen when I was looking for inspiration. To access the gradient tool, just press G, and then at the top on the left side hand of the screen, you're going to be able to control the gradient. Let's take the logo and place it where we wanted it to be. Hold Command T or Control T if you're on a PC, so you can transform that specific element. I've chosen to go with a diagonal gradient just because I think it looks way more interesting and more dynamic than just a regular horizontal or vertical gradient. I'm trying to use the colors they gave me, the colors of the brand, but of course some changes might appear once I start using images. But let's go ahead and create a headline. I'll make it white and the font is Railway. To have more control over your text element, please hit Command T or Control T and the character panel is gonna open up. So now you have more control over your type. I'll just go with 50 pixels for this one. Usually I stay around 40 to 50 for the headline. Once I have that, I'm gonna move to the second headline, the secondary one. Just create a new text box. Let's paste it in. And I'm gonna use 24 pixels for this one. Let's move it a bit. And I really think it looks pretty good so far. At this stage of the process, you shouldn't be afraid to try out new positions for each element and try out new layouts. You would be less likely to do so at the end of the project, so this is the time to experiment. As you can see, I've just created a shape element, a rectangle, and this one is going to be my form field. Now keep in mind this might be the most important element on your landing page, so you need to make sure its placement is perfect. So right now we're gonna add a button next to it. I'll simply hold the Alt key or Option key and drag it to the far right to duplicate that element, that shape element. Now that's gonna become my button. I'll double click inside it so I can modify its color, and I'm gonna sample directly from the color shape that I've previously created. Let's duplicate this as well. Select everything and make it 15 because right now I want to place something right beneath the form that's regarding the terms of service. So I'm including this line because usually you have to agree on something when you submit a form or when you create an account. It's good from time to time to simply take a step back and look at the layout you've just created. That will help you build better layouts and make sure the spacing is right. For example, the logo seems a bit too big for me, but I'm not gonna adjust it just yet. Let me clear some of these layers first. Now I know the way I handle layers isn't probably the best way of doing it, but usually at the end of the project I go through the document and make sure every single layer is named and placed correctly. I think the form looks good, but I want to have a form label for its field. I'm still experimenting with the secondary color, something that's neutral, something that works well with this current layout. Let's duplicate that and create the call to action. We're gonna have start trading, so that's the only element, the only text element that I'm gonna bold up to make sure it stands out more. I'm really starting to like how this header looks. I can already imagine it, how a picture would affect it. So I like to have a picture that doesn't go over our text, something that goes well on the sides. So that's the next trick. So I'll have to go to Unsplash because this is one of the best places to get free, royalty-free images that are pretty high quality. So I'll start looking for something that has computer in it, something that has a user using a notebook or a computer, but I have to find one that has a layout that works with my need. Something that, like this example with that guy from the back. But I need something better. I'll just keep looking. Maybe have notebook inside it, or let's see this one. Let's download it real quick and check it out. I'll just save it on my desktop. Okay, then go ahead and place it on your header. As you can see, it was placed right at the top of the group, but I'm gonna place it underneath my gradient, and the gradient I'm gonna select multiply from the blending options. And as you already see, this looks pretty great from the start. Just some small placement adjustments and I'm pretty much sold on it. Now the only thing I don't like is that the old colors weren't really preserved, so I'm gonna sample them again and create a gradient that fades to a transparent background. So I'll just switch them up using X and go with dark blue on the left and this orange on the right. Try to see how it will look with different layer styles and different opacities. See if it improves the design or not. I'm just gonna go with normal and lower the opacity a bit. What I usually do at this step of the process is create shapes that have specific heights, so I can make sure that the spacing between elements is pretty equal, but this will not be the final spacing between elements. I will make a special video at the end where I go more in depth and present this whole process of spacing out elements correctly. I think this looks pretty good so far, but I have a couple of changes I want to make real quick. First of all, I would like to change the second headline, its font size to 21, drop it a bit, so it's not as powerful as the main headline, and make the main headline, make it all caps. I think this looks way better than before. But of course, this is only my opinion. It's gonna be all up to the client if he decides to go with it or if he wants any changes. But for now, this is what I'm gonna go along with for the rest of the course. Now I just want to show you a quick split difference between the wireframe and the result we got just before we're ready to go to the next section, so you know how important the wireframe is in making sure that the design is going to be consistent. Now that we've recently completed the headline, now it's time to move to the second section and present our features. In the previous lesson, we've went over the whole process of designing the main header section. Now we're going to move to the next one, and we're gonna build the first section that presents our features. The first section where we're gonna present the benefits offered by the landing page. Now let's go ahead and create a new layer, and as in the previous video, I'm gonna create a layer mask, even though I'm not sure I need it this time, as the background is gonna be completely white. So I have this idea of placing those three columns inside the rectangle. The rectangle is gonna be all white, and let's first adjust it to the width of the guidelines, which is 1200 pixels, and apply a color. It's gonna be white, and I'm gonna define it by adding a drop shadow, and then I'm gonna go for a outer glow. So for this shadow, I'll just go with multiply, and for the outer glow, just a normal shading, but with a really low opacity. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's see how it looks if I go a bit over the header. Now that I've placed the rectangle on top of the header section, I will have to readjust, but not right now. But each and every element is gonna have to be readjusted. But for now, let's start adding content to it. I'm gonna go with a small headline, and let's deselect the all caps, move it down a bit. Of course, I want to make the font size smaller, maybe 24. Now I'm looking for the content I'm gonna place there. We're gonna start with this one, with this line, peer-to-peer Bitcoin marketplace. This is gonna be our headline for this section. 24 looks about right. Now I have to look for the content and what I'm gonna place right underneath. It will be a paragraph. That's the content I just selected. Let's duplicate this element so I can work on it. But I first have to find it where I've initially placed it. Here it is. Control A to select everything and make it dark. And now let's move it in the right folder, so it's visible, so it's on top of the rectangle. Let's replace this line of text. We'll do 17. We're gonna use 17 from now on paragraphs. Let's find a color that could work well with this one. I'm thinking about a light light gray combined with some blues. It's not as visible as I would like it to be, so let's go ahead and change it a bit. Slightly darker, slightly darker. Yeah, I think this is way better. I'm gonna copy that and add that color to the color scheme. So I'm gonna duplicate one shape element, and I'm gonna apply this color to it. Double click, paste it, and this is it. Now I'm gonna use that color throughout the page for some elements. Let's space everything out a bit, and I'm gonna start working on the three column layout I initially had in the wireframe. Now let's move this up a bit, and I'm gonna create three separate shapes just so you can see where I'm about to place the content. Maybe have a card design for each one, even though they're kinda small for it. But I'm probably just gonna go with standard icon, headline, and description right underneath. So let's start with the first one. It's a pretty small amount of text, so let's just duplicate this one, make it smaller, adjust it, and I'll select it and paste my content here. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna have an icon there or what's gonna happen, but I'll figure that out during the process. So let's have the last part removed, and let's use that similar to a headline, but something that stands out more than a basic headline. Gonna make it bigger and place it right above it. I'm not sure about the color yet. Maybe I'll have something like the red I've used inside the button. I think that looks way better than before, and slightly adjust to 30. Or now that I look at it from above, it needs to stand out more. So 40 looks about right. I'll adjust it using my arrows, and let's group these elements and duplicate them by holding out Alt O. I've added the wrong elements in the group. Let me find it. Which one is this one? Oh, okay. My bad. Okay, select them both, Command G, then rename them by double clicking on the folder name. Now I'll just duplicate each one by holding the Alt key and moving the whole group. So this is the layout, this is how it's gonna look. Now I only have to change the text. Let's select the second line. If you are a buyer, yeah, paste that in. And I'll have to adjust the top headline. I'll just go with 100%, something that's relevant to that specific paragraph. Now for the last one, copy and paste it, and replace this with number 1. That looks pretty simple, and I'm pretty happy with it. Even though I haven't spent a lot of time on this one, I'm pretty happy with it and how it goes with the page. Let's just collapse these ones and group them together. But now that I think about it, I'm guessing I'm gonna experiment a bit and see how it would look like with icons instead of these headlines. So let me just remove them real quick. This is my way of selecting. I know there's a better way, but this is what I'm used to, so please don't judge. Please don't judge me. Okay, now I'm using WriteFont. WriteFont is an app that has all the material icons, the ones provided by Google. I can quickly search through them and quickly drag and drop inside the Photoshop document. Please keep in mind that all of these icons are free and available on Google's site. I'm going to include the link in the description of the course. So you will have access to all of these icons. It's not something you have to pay for it. I just like using this app. So as you can see, I've placed a chat icon for the first one because it relates to support. Then for security and protection, I'm gonna use a lock because that makes sense, right? And for the third one, I'm probably gonna have something, a security shield. Okay, now let's adjust this ones a bit. I like it the way they look, but they're a bit too big right now. So let's make them smaller first. Select the first one now and make it smaller. Let me quickly align all of these. And I'll use the color from the color scheme. I'll use the first red and see how that looks. I'll copy the layer style and paste them on top of these two elements. Now I'm not sure if this looks okay. I'm feeling like it attracts way too much attention, so I'll try something more subtle, maybe a gradient. Even though this gradient, if I'm using the dark blue and the orange, the burnt orange, it's probably too hard. It's even worse than before. So I'm not sure, maybe I'll just go with that light gray instead. Let me see quickly. Let me toggle between the before and after. I'm a bit conflicted. Let me see. Yeah, I'm a bit conflicted because I really enjoy the headlines, the simple typography, but I like these icons as well because I think they add a benefit to to the benefit. Let me just change it to the light gray and see how that looks. Maybe it's a bit more subtle. Yeah, I think I like it better than red, but that's just a preference. So for now, this is how I'm gonna continue with the design, with these icons on light gray. With that said, I think we're ready to go to the next section. See you in the next video. So in this lesson, we're gonna create the second feature section, which is actually the third section of our design. Here is the wireframe, and as you can see, we have 4 rows of different benefits. So we can start building that right away. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna duplicate that particular headline. Let's just move it inside the appropriate group, and one paragraph line. So I'm gonna have a headline, then a paragraph line, and next to it I'm gonna place an icon. A pretty straightforward layout. Let's just align these. Let's do left align for this paragraph and move it right next to it. That should be okay. Let's get the content now. For this one, I'm gonna go with the ones below. Users can easily exchange Bitcoin, etc. Let's paste that inside. Now I don't have any content for the headlines, but I'm gonna make something up. Exchange should be good, something really simple, and let's left align this as well, so it's easier to edit once I duplicate this group. Let's group them together and name this particular group 1 exchange. Okay, now I'm ready to duplicate it by holding the Alt key or the Option key. Let's change the visibility on the rectangle because I'm probably just gonna go with a straight white background. Okay, once I have these two, I can select both and with the Option key drag it to the right, and now I have my layout. Now I'm ready to input my content. Let's go and find the content for each individual line. So I'm gonna use the discover one for the second one. I'm not sure about the headline just yet, but I'm gonna first replace all of these and then think about the headlines. Now, usually what I would do, I would simply ask the client what they want there, but for this exercise, I'm just gonna make it up. That should be good. Now let's go ahead and change the headlines. The first one is about discovering more. So I'm gonna have order types. The third one is about funding. So let's say margin funding. And for the last one, yeah, let's change this one first. Okay. And for the last one, it's about custom workspaces. So let's just have workspaces there. Now I'm pretty happy with what I got. Now let's just find icons for each individual group. Let me rename them first so I know exactly I don't make the mistake I did before. Now let's go into right font and let's just look for something that could fit with this four. So first let's go exchange, change. Yeah, let's place this one. Maybe have it at 45 degrees. Command T to rotate it, and let's place it on the left. Double click on the layout to enter its style and go to color overlay, or no, let me just go ahead and have a stroke for it. I'll sample this light gray and 2 pixels looks good, and just take the fill to 0%. That should be enough. I'll try and move these to the right a bit just to have enough space, enough margin between the graphical element and the paragraphs. Now I'm still not sure about the positioning, if I'm gonna go just vertical or have it sideways, but for now I'm gonna leave it like that, and hopefully it's gonna work out well, depending on how the other icons are looking, because I want to have a consistent look for each individual group. Now I need to look for another icon. Let's go for order types with a shopping cart maybe. This one looks pretty decent. I'm gonna apply the exact same styling to it, like I did on the previous icon. So just right click and copy style, then paste it on top of it. Maybe have it outside so it doesn't look so crowded. That should be okay. Let me just move it a bit. Now I'm still trying to figure out how I can make everything look proportionate, but that should be fine by so far. Let's go to outline. Okay, and I think it's time for the next icon. For margin funding, I'm not sure what can work. Let's try a chart, maybe a pie chart. I'll add it there, and the same thing I did with the other icons, just paste the style on top of it. Let's start looking for a new icon for the workspace. I'm not sure what I can have, maybe something stacked on each other or edit. When I'll see it, I'll know it, but I'll probably just have this icon. So something that shows you how you can edit stuff. So I've pasted the style on top of it, and do small adjustments with the arrow keys. Now let's align them. Align those two and the first two. Center align them. I know this might not be the best style for a tutorial, but I usually like to stay zoomed out so I can see how the other elements stack up against the new layout. If you stay too much time zoomed in, you're not gonna see how it looks compared with the other ones. So be sure to zoom in and out from time to time. Now that I think about it, I think I'm going to go with the first idea I had. Even though I said don't get locked on the first idea, I'm gonna go in the previous section and just enable the first one with the headlines, not with the icons. I think having too many icons can be detrimental, and right now the second feature section looks more interesting, not having to compare yourself with the one above it, as it had a really similar layout. Just before I wrap this section up, I'm gonna change the positioning of the outline for each individual element. I'm gonna go with inside because as I said on the margin funding, uh, those strokes are way too close to each other. So I'll just go with a center positioning for every single icon in this section. And now I think we're ready to move on to the testimonial section. Okay guys, now that we've finished the two feature sections, it's time to move to the how part, where we're gonna put a play button and some content on the right that's gonna break down the whole process. Let's start by adding a rectangle, which is gonna define this section. Let's change the size to 1920 by 500. I went ahead with 500 for most of these sections as I feel they need to be balanced out. With this one I'm gonna add a background image, so I'm gonna have to do a clipping mask. Let me group them first and rename this process. Okay, so this is the fourth section. I'm gonna go right ahead and create a clipping mask as I've said, and now it's time to find an image for it. I'll go into Chrome and let me first figure out how the computer works. Okay, now I'm into Chrome. Let me just go to unsplash.com. This is my favorite place for royalty-free images. I need to find an image that is not complex, something that shows the user engaging with the content, but doesn't overlap over all of my elements. So I'm gonna just look for mobile and I'll browse through them until I find something I think could work with my current layout. All of these images are pretty great, so beyond Unsplash I would recommend pexels.com. That's also a great place for royalty-free images, but this is my favorite. So I found an image, let's download it. I'll just save it to the desktop and go back into Photoshop and place that image. Okay, now I can adjust its position. And let's flip it because I want to have the content, the paragraphs on the right and the headline, and I want it to be as clean as possible and not interfere with it. So let's move it down. Okay, this already blends really well with the background, and now I can add the gradient. I'm gonna go with my two colors the same way I had it on the header. I'll try from left to right, diagonal. Let's see if I can find the blending mode that works. Maybe color. No, there's a lot of contrast in this image, so I'm not sure what's gonna work for it. Let's see, one of these. Still don't think they're good enough. For the header image, multiply worked out perfectly. I didn't even had to edit anything. But with this one, I'm guessing it's gonna be a bit harder. So let's lower the opacity a bit. And now create a layer on top of that. And using the gradient tool, I'm going to the one that goes from a color to a transparency. And first with the dark blue, I'm gonna drag it a couple of times. Now I'm gonna switch it to orange and leave it to normal. I think this looks pretty good so far, and it's a pretty decent start. Now that I've duplicated those layers, I'm trying to get something more contrasty, something more vibrant. I'm not sure how much success I'm getting out of it, but I think I'm gonna stick with this look. It's pretty good, and I can already picture how I'm gonna place the paragraphs on the right hand side and the button on the left. So let's slightly adjust the rectangle because it was offset by a couple of pixels, and group everything so I can make sure the background is separated from the other elements. And let's start by duplicating one of these groups. I'll select the headline and the paragraph and just move them in the right group, in the right section, just above the background. So to keep things consistent, I'm gonna use the same font size for the headline and the paragraph whenever I can, whenever I'm not limited by the elements. So right now I'm starting to edit the headline. I'm just gonna go with how do I get started. It's a pretty basic phrase. All of this can be adjusted in the revision stage, so I'm not too worried about what I'm gonna place there. And let's have this line here. I'm gonna make it white because it's gonna stand out way better than that gray. Okay, let's adjust the container. Now let me just drag this over and duplicate it so I can include the steps necessary for the person who visits the site to take advantage of our offer, which is a free trial. So let me go with the first step, and that's create your wallet. Second step, it's gonna be connect your credit card, and the third one is probably just something simple like buying any cryptocurrency. So this looks okay. Let me just adjust the spacing between each line. So I'll hit Command T, and from here I'm gonna adjust the line spacing. I'm pretty happy with that. But let's move all of these elements a bit because right now they're not centered in this section. This looks a bit better. I'm gonna adjust this paragraph and only have it 2 lines and somehow separate that part with the headline and the paragraph and the steps. I want those parts separated. And let me just use the arrows to fit them where I need them to be. And now I can move on to the play button. I'll select the ellipse tool, and let me just drag it here. It's gonna probably fit somewhere in the middle of the left hand part of the section. Let's try it. No, this is way too small. I first tried it to make it as small as the icons above, but that's way too small. So I'm gonna duplicate it and place it behind, and I'm just gonna use that selection to create a gradient. I'll create a new layer, and with the gradient tool I'll just drag it a bit. So I'll create this fading effect for the button. It's somehow subtle, but you can still see it, and I'll probably just place the first one, the first smaller one, on top just to make sure it's really visible. Let me look for an icon now, a play icon. I need something really thin, similar to the icons above from the second features section. This should be okay. Let me drag it in. Okay, I've placed it, and I'm gonna apply a white white color to it. So color overlay white. Okay, might be a bit too subtle. I know I said I like the way it looked this way, but I'm probably just gonna do the first idea and place the first ellipse on top of the faded circle. So let me resize that element, Command T, and I think this looks better. With that fading effect, I think it makes it pop up more, makes it stand out more, and gives it some dimension. I'll play with some blending modes here to see if anything looks good. This looks pretty good, even though it's kind of similar to just having it normal and with a lowered opacity, but for now this should be okay. Now I'm thinking about a way on how I can improve this specific part of the steps. So let's just remove the numbering system and move everything to the right a bit, and let's try and add some icons that might go well with this layout. So I'll go into right font and look for some icons. For this one, the first one is gonna be a wallet, obviously. Let me see if I like any of these. Drag and drop, and let's adjust it by holding down Shift and place it where that line would go. And of course I'm gonna double click and apply a color overlay of white, but let's first find an icon for each one. A credit card for the second one, makes sense, right? And for the third one, maybe a no, not a wallet, because I already did that. A shopping bag. Let's see, maybe that one. Yeah, even though it kind of looks different from the other icons, maybe because it has kind of a squarish look to it and it doesn't fit with the other icons. So let me try this one and see how that would look. I mean, I know it's not the best way of just placing icons on top of each other, but I'm just trying to figure out if the layout would look great. Let's try this shopping cart. I need to place it first. Now I really can't tell if it's gonna work or not, so let me delete the first ones. I think it's pretty decent. I'll just have to increase it a bit, and let's rename them cart, card, and wallet. And now double click, color overlay, and the default white one, and I'll just copy and paste the layer style. I have to do a couple of small adjustments, so let's just move everything to the left a bit. I mean the text content, and let me adjust this container, and I think this is pretty much done. I don't see any changes I would like to do just now. I feel like this is a good layout, and I think I'm ready to get to the next section. Right before I align everything. Okay, let me just align them, and now I can move to the testimonials section. See you in the next video. Okay guys, so now we can start working on our testimonials section. As you might remember from the wireframe, we had 2-column layout, so we can get started with that. First off, let me select the rectangle tool and create our section. So let's just click once, set it a width of 1920 by 500 pixels. Let's place it right underneath the process and select a guiding ruler just to delimit that space. I don't plan to have any background image in it, so I don't need it. I only needed to define the section. Okay, let's rename this folder, and we can start building our testimonials. So first off, let me draw the first rectangle. Okay, let's place it here, and adjust it just enough so you have enough space for two of them. So as you can see, I didn't go right straight to the middle ruler. I just went slightly to the left so I have enough space for two. I'll copy the layer style from the rectangle from the second section because I want a similar look to these cards as well. So I just pasted that in, and let me just zoom in a bit to see how it looks. It has a pretty subtle drop shadow, which I like. Now keep in mind that I'm going to use placeholder text for this one, as I don't have the testimonials they want to have in the final design. So I'm gonna have to look for that first. I'll paste it here, but no, I have to make a container first. This is it. Let me work a bit on the font size. I'm gonna choose 17 for this one, but probably I'm gonna have to go bigger with it, or just make the rectangle smaller. Okay, let's move it in the center. Let's center align this. Now I'm not sure if it's aligned well. Yeah, this is okay. And on top of that, I'm going to have the name of the person that's giving out the testimonial. Let me just put something random in it. I'm sure it's gonna be changed later on in the process. Let's apply a different color to it. Black should be okay, just to make it stand out from the testimonial, even though the testimonial usually needs to stand out more than the name. But in this case, I'm thinking this might be a good choice. So let's adjust the positioning of every element, and then create an ellipse where the avatar of the person who left the testimonial is going to be placed. Now I want something similar to the rectangle, a really subtle shade. Let me just move everything up. Okay, so I want the really subtle shading and paste it in. Yeah, it's really subtle as you can see, but let's increase the drop shadow size a bit and its opacity. This should be better. Now I have to find an image that could go there as a placeholder until we get the real count. But first I would like to duplicate everything. So let's group everything first. This testimonial, I'll group it, and then holding the Alt key, I'll just drag it to the right so I can see if this layout is what I'm looking for before I invest any more time in it. Let me change the name real quick, just for the purpose of having something different on the right side and not have something exactly the same. But this looks okay. Now I'm on to finding images for it. As usual, I'm gonna go into Unsplash and just look for people, but for some reason all I'm getting is women. So I'll just take a couple of quick screenshots of the ones I think that could fit with what I need. For example, that one. And let me go ahead and place that inside. File, place embedded. I'll select the headshot I just took, and let's try and place it above the circle. As you can see, I can just place it above and then just hit click, and while holding command on that specific shape, and it's gonna create a selection of that shape, so I can see exactly where that shape is placed underneath the image. But I need to deselect it first and just move the shape a bit. I'm gonna lower its opacity. Maybe I can see exactly where I can place it to fit correctly inside. Let's zoom in a bit and drag this around. Okay, now I can make that selection. So holding down command, click on the shape layer. It's creating a selection. Then right click and copy in front. So this is the image I got. Let me just adjust this and make it smaller so I can see that rectangle behind, and it looks just like an outline with a drop shadow. So this is the look I'm going for. let's add an icon, maybe a code, and I'm thinking about placing it at the bottom of the rectangle. Let's see how it looks on the side. Now I don't think that I'm going to keep this, but just to see how it will look like, let's color apply and select that dark gray I've previously used on other elements. Maybe the red. No, this is it. Okay, and it looks okay, but I have a feeling that centering it might look even better. So let's select these elements and align them using the alignment tool. I think this is better than before, and the design is not as bland as it was before. So let's just duplicate everything and move it to the right. Make sure it has the correct spacing. And now all I want to do is change the name just for the sake of it. Once I've done that, I can go and group everything together and define these two groups so I know which one is which. Let's do some small adjustments, some positioning issues, because I'm thinking about the white space I want to have there. So this is the wireframe, how it looked like and how the design looks now. But I'm thinking that something is missing, so maybe have a clients section, a small section where I feature the most important clients that are using this platform. So let's have a headline and then a small paragraph right underneath. I'll have there our partners. That should be okay. And I'm thinking I already have a line for that particular section. Let me just look. Yeah, I'll use the last one. I'll use the last one here. Let's adjust it a bit, just so it looks better proportionate, and center align it with the other headline. Now I'm ready to move in and add the images of the partners. I already have that saved up, so let me group this first. And now I can go ahead and place the partners logos. I'll make them smaller a bit and place them right underneath. Let me make them a little bit bigger, just so they can stand out more and they are aligned with the two column testimonials above. Let me just create a rectangle real quick just to define this section. Group this inside here, and let's just move it right underneath so I can see the logos and adjust the positioning a bit. Okay, this should be good. Now let's drag a ruler there to define it, and I can remove that one. I think there's enough space now for us to build our final section, which is going to be the closing argument. So see you in the next video. Okay guys, now we're about to design the last section, so let's take a look on what we've done so far and see how that section should look like. Now that we're ready, I'll just duplicate the first section, the header section, and just by holding down the Alt key, I'll move it down. Now in the wireframe, I just had the logo, a headline or a paragraph depending on what I'm gonna go with, and a button underneath. That button is going to be linked to the first section, and it's gonna drive the visitors, if they click, right to the first section where they can sign up for the free account. So let's start editing this. I'm gonna make the logo a bit bigger since it's a vector. That shouldn't be a problem. Now I've just selected the brush button and clicked once so I can edit this particular layer. I'm selecting just the icon, as that's the only element from the logo I'm going to use. So let's rename it and color overlay white. I'm gonna place this right above the headline, right about there. I'm gonna adjust it a bit after I'm done with this. So let's remove the headline, and I'm just gonna be left with this paragraph, and I want to have a button underneath. So let's move everything up to see how that would look like. I'm guessing I'm gonna have to make that paragraph a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna use maybe 24. Yeah, 24 looks better. Let me just apply that. I still feel like we're missing something, so I'm just gonna duplicate that paragraph. Let me just hold down Alt and drag it up and edit it, and I'm gonna have a call to action there. So I'm gonna have something that represents what it's about to happen if you click on the button below. So sign up for a free account today. I'm going with 30, what I've used throughout this page for headlines. Okay, and let's just move that underneath, and we can deal with the form now. I'll have to remove the form field and the form label field. These are it, and I'm just gonna be left with this button. This button is gonna go right underneath the paragraph. Let me group those together. Now I can move both of them. Let me select them first. Okay, now let's drag it into the center and align it with everything else. And I'm pretty happy with what we got so far. Let me zoom in so I can check the margins. Now, making these small adjustments just by looking at it and seeing if it looks right, I'm gonna make sure and have every single margin equal once I finish the design. So I don't worry about that at this stage. So let's drag the clipping mask and make this section a little bit smaller. Okay, let's select these elements and just do small adjustments just to make sure everything looks proportionate and there's enough space at the top and at the bottom to make sure these elements are the main focus of that section. So let's crop everything, and I'll leave a small space at the bottom of the page just so I can have the copyright there. Now I'm going to look for a background image. I'll go to Unsplash again and look for an image that could work for the bottom section. And this is really important because that final section needs to feel part of the whole layout. So I've just found one, and let's place it inside. See how this looks. Okay, I'll have to go up and then use a clipping mask. Okay, let me just remove the first one. As you can see, for this one, the gradient overlay is way too powerful, so I'll have to make some small adjustments with this layout. I really want to make the guy that sits on the computer, the guy that uses the computer, to be visible. Right now it wasn't, so I'll just try and have the computer as well as his silhouette in the background, and maybe just move it to the right a bit, just so it doesn't interfere with the content. As always, I'll do small adjustments here and there until I'm happy with what I've come up with. So let me just play around with the blending modes on the gradient overlay on top of this image and place a couple of new ones by hitting G and accessing the gradient tool and switching between the two primary colors. I only want to have the silhouette of the guy visible and not show a lot of details. I can compare it now with the process section real quick just to make sure it's similar visually. It's really important to have a consistent look, as I've just said. Now I'll just duplicate one of these text elements to have the copyright content, as I've previously mentioned. This is just to be there. I'm not sure if the client is going to use it or not, but yeah, It's pretty normal to have it. Let me make it smaller so it doesn't stand out as much as it does now, and that should be okay. Let me place it outside of this group, and I think the design is pretty much finished. Now I only have to make small adjustments and make sure the margins are equal and make sure the spacing and everything flows well together. So that's what we're gonna cover in the next lesson. So I've started the process of making sure that every single element has the correct spacing by creating shape elements and then resizing them to specific heights, like I did in this example with 100 pixels, and I do a couple of variations and then see what works. Usually the shapes I end up using in the header are the ones I'm gonna use throughout the landing page. So this is very important. This is probably the hardest part, getting the header right. Once I figure out all the spacing between the elements and something that looks good, something that looks decent, I just move everything in place and then I move on section by section and apply those margins. Doing it now at the end of the process lets me focus more on the layout and lets me focus more on the way each element looks without having to worry if the spacing is correct. I could have done this the first time, but now that I have the whole design, I have a better idea on what looks good and what doesn't. Another reason I like adjusting the spacing at the end of the process is because I'm going over every single individual section, and this is the perfect time to catch small problems I have with the design and being able to adjust them on the spot. This is like having a second look on your design, but from the outside, without getting stuck on the graphical part. And yeah guys, don't forget, you can always reach out and ask me if you have any questions, as I would love to see what are the issues you had with the design, how you solved that, and how you went about creating this landing page. I'm curious to see what you guys came up with so I can review them and give you pointers on how to improve in the future. See you in the next video. Hey, what is up guys? So in this lesson we're gonna transfer this landing page design from Photoshop to a live page, a page that has a form that actually works. So I'm going to use Instapage for this one. In case you don't know, Instapage is a landing page builder and it allows you to create landing pages by drag and dropping elements onto your page, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now I usually start the process by overlaying a white shape on top of the whole design and setting its opacity to somewhere around 80%, then going inside the builder, uploading that image and setting it as a background image. So going to settings, background image, and I set it here. That way I can see the whole layout. Let me just work a bit on this one. Don't forget settings, background image, and this is it. Now you can see the whole template. Then I start adding new sections, add section, and at this point I'm only defining each section, each individual section. So I'm just going one by one, adding a new section and then dragging the guidelines where each section ends or begins. Now that this is over, I'll go inside Photoshop, adjust the visibility on that specific layer and go into the first section. Now I'm going to export each element, each graphical element that I need by going inside the layer panel, right clicking on the specific layer I want to export and then going quick export as PNG. I'm setting up a new folder now, and this allows me to make sure that every single element that I export is in its specific location and I can find it easily when I can upload them inside Instapage. So right now I just want to add new image and I'm looking for my first image, which is the logo. So once that is uploaded, I just go with insert, and I place it on top of the element from the background image. So right now I know exactly where each element is going to go, so I just have to create those elements, those specific elements. For example, for this headline, I just went add new headline, pasted in, but as you can see, it didn't pick up the all caps style, so I have to rewrite it again. But that's okay. I think it's going to only apply for this specific element. So as you can see, you have control on the alignment of the text, the font size, every single thing. But first, let's go and select our fonts. I've used Railway for this project, so I'm going to settings, fonts, looking for that specific font, adding it, and let me select it from the headline as well. Okay, this should be okay, normal, and let me just adjust the size. It's pretty cool that you can actually check the font size from Photoshop and apply the exact same one here. As you can see, I've placed it where it should be, just adjusted the line height, and it's a perfect fit. Now, not every single element is gonna be exactly the way it was designed, because there are some small limitations with the Instapage builder. For example, the width where the content goes can only be 960 pixels. You can usually work around that by just having images, but I like just trying to adapt the design, making sure it works as intended with just a couple of small detail changes. Let me adjust this paragraph, and now let's add new, a form. Now the form is the most important element on our page, so let me just delete that form field, add our label, the label we had inside the Photoshop document, hit save, and let me just place it over there. First I need to move it, and I can adjust the form field, and I can move the button around to make sure it looks exactly like the design from Photoshop. Now I need to customize it a bit to make sure it fits. I'll double click, and this allows me to access the settings. Let me just sample that color. Okay, copy and paste it. Then when I go inside, I'll go to button, style, and just paste the color code there. You can adjust the radius, you can adjust the font, you can adjust the font size, the call to action, and you can even have certain effects, but for this particular examples we don't need to go into all of that. As you can see, you can also customize the form field. Now I'm in the settings, and I'm gonna use this light gray. Let me copy that, and we're gonna use this color on certain elements as well. And it's pretty great that once you added a new color, it stays there. You will have a color palette available and saved, so you can use it whenever you need. Again, let me just grab that one real quick, copy and paste it in, adjust the font size, and just move it in place. Now I've used black just to see where I'm positioning it, but I need to change the color image of every single element. Now you can align elements. Okay, this looks great, and I have to export the background image. I'm going to group everything together and duplicate that specific group, merge it, and then quickly export it. Now of course you can optimize it better than I just did, but for the sake of this course, I'm just going to save it and upload it instead. So I know where it is. Let me just add it in. And now I have to change the color. You can play around with the positioning, and you even have the option to add the color overlay on top of it, but at this point I don't need that. So I just select the text and make it white, and here is our first section. Now we're ready to move to the second one. I'm going to speed the process a bit because there's nothing really interesting happening. I just go about and export every single element. For example, this rectangle that's going to be above the first section. First off, I need to recreate all of these elements first and then add it, because once I add that rectangle, I won't be able to see where each element is positioned. As you might have seen, that rectangle is larger than 960 pixels, so I need to find a way to adjust all of the elements to work with that. As you can see, for example, for this tree, I just select those two elements, I group them together, and then I duplicate them. So now I need to have enough space for the rectangle. Let me just add it in and move it back. And as you can see, you can multiple select and then adjust multiple elements to make sure they fit in. Now this is not the perfect way of doing it. I could have just created a background image, a custom background image that included that rectangle as well, and I didn't have to worry about it. But I think this is way better because you can make changes on the fly if you need to. If you committed that design and you created a special background image for it and you need to adjust things slightly, then you'll have to redo the whole process again. So now we've reached the second features section. Again, I'm just recreating this layout, and once I have a couple of elements done, I just copy and paste them and move them around. As you can see, I'm still doing small changes and I'm still aligning stuff, as I didn't know how this will work inside the 960 pixels guide. But so far so good. These are only small changes. If I were to hand code this page, it would have probably taken me days, but this is so much easier. And just the fact that you can add the form and you can connect it to your MailChimp list or other CRMs, that's the most powerful thing about it. Now as you can see, I've reached the process section. So for this one I'm gonna slow things a bit, because as you can see, the paragraph underneath the first headline is going out of bounds, so I need to adjust that. I still want the two line layout for that specific paragraph, so I'm going to slightly adjust it and modify it until that fits. Let me just select this one as well and align them. Okay. And now I can start working on the details. I will just have to duplicate this paragraph, and once I've done that, I can go ahead and copy and paste these 3 lines. As you can see, sometimes it doesn't pick the exact styling, but those are just small changes you can make on the fly. Similar to the previous sections, I'm just going to export those icons one by one and then add them inside the builder. I'll just add them one by one, move them in place, align them, and just do small adjustments till I'm happy with everything. Now I'm going to export the play button, and I'm gonna place it a bit more to the right because the layout is more constrained. And once you added the background image, as you can see, you have the option to have parallax, but for this section I'm not going to use that. Now I'm ready to pick up where I've left and go for the testimonial section. Let me just save that first, and now I'm ready. This design doesn't have any crazy graphics in it or any crazy background animations built in mind for it, so it's fairly easy to recreate it. As you can see, I'm just adding elements on top of where the elements should be, and then I'm exporting the graphical elements, which are quite few. For example, this testimonial box, it only has 3 graphical elements and 2 paragraphs, so that's not that hard. For the image, for where the avatar goes, I'm going to use a shape element, and inside that circle shaped element I can add an image. So that would be That would make it way easier for the client to switch the avatar around. So once I've done that, I just duplicate it, arrange it a bit, and make sure it fits well with the layout. Now, as you can see, it's not a perfect fit, but it's going to work for me. I'm going to add the client logos, and now we're ready to start working on the last section, which again has very few graphical elements, just the logo icon, and the background image. That's the only things I need to export. I've just added the logo, and I need to add the button. Buttons are really similar to the buttons from the forms, so you have basically the same amount of control over the way they look. And now let's add the background image and the copyright tag, and this is about it. The design is now completed. Now I only have to make sure that the spacing is right, as I've done a couple of changes, like that box from the second section, that's way smaller than it was before, so I still need to do a couple of changes. I've also added parallax for this top background image, as you can see here, and I just need to figure out spacing. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to publish this page to a live URL, and you can take a look even after you watch this video. You can take a look and see how it looks live on a server. Let me just link that button to the top section, so once you click on that specific button at the end, you're gonna be taken back to this first section, and you can actually complete the action we want, the goal which is to get somebody to sign up for a free trial. You can center align stuff. For example, I've selected multiple items that need to be centered aligned, and once you select them holding down shift, you can just center align them and make sure that everything's in the right place. Let me just slightly adjust this section. Now I'm just eyeballing stuff. Even though that design, which I created in Photoshop, can be taken by a developer, and those margins should stay the way they are, for this specific example, I'm gonna eyeball it a bit just to show you how easy it is to create a live page in just a matter of minutes. So I've hit preview, and as you can see, Instapage has a collaboration feature, which means that you can add comments, you can send ideas or notes, or you can ask for feedback from clients or from your team members on specific elements, and you can preview the page. If you want to see how it will look in real life, just toggle that comment mode, and this is the page. Every single element is you can select it. That's a text element, but now I'm going to use the same technique I've used in Photoshop to make sure the margins are correct and the spacing between elements is consistent, and I'm just going to create shape elements. Now, I don't know if a couple of years ago you could have done this in such a short time, but the ability to have that inside Instapage is pretty incredible. So let me just publish this page. You can publish it to a custom domain, but I'm just going to publish it to a demo page. You can write whatever you want here, and once you're happy, you can just hit publish. I wasn't happy, so I edited that. So publish, and once that is published, you are being redirected to your dashboard, and you can just go inside, and this is the landing page. It's a functional landing page. Let me put on a test email and start the trial. Okay, it says thank you, and now if I go back to Instapage and let me refresh this, you can see that lead came in, and you you can do whatever you want with it. You can export it, you can copy it, you can get in contact. And the crazy thing about it is that you can even integrate, as I said, with your preferred CRM, or you can go with webhooks. They have a direct integration with webhooks, which allows you to directly send those details inside your system, and that will create a new user. As you can see here, I have a couple of tests set up, but you can go with a wide array of options here. Now I forgot one thing, to add a video to the play button, so I'm just going to select that image and link it to a pop-up and have a video there. It defaults to a YouTube video, but you can always edit it, and you can always replace that video with something you've created. So let's save that up, and the page is finished. You will receive this template as well with the layer PSD file. Just check out the comment mode, or just check out the course description, and you should find a link there to download all of this for free. They come included with the course. And you can use this layout as a template for your own goal. It's pretty easy to just customize it to make it work for your own goal. Whether we're talking about the PSD file or whether we're talking about the Instapage file. So this is it, guys. If you have any question, don't hesitate to let me know, and I love to see your projects and see what you have come up with, so don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, bye guys.